Imagine committing the perfect crime. Every detail meticulously planned, every loose end tied, no witnesses, no evidence, no mistakes. You've done it. You've gotten away with it. The police have nothing. Years pass, and you're free, living your life as if nothing ever happened. But then, in a single moment of silence, everything unravels. Not because of a detective's brilliance or a surprise witness, but because of something far more powerful. The weight of guilt that refuses to stay buried. This is the true story of how one of the most carefully orchestrated crimes in modern history collapsed, not from investigation, but from a confession that came without words. On a cold February morning in 2003 in the quiet suburban town of Modesto, California, a young woman named Laci Peterson vanished without a trace. She was 8 months pregnant, glowing with the anticipation of motherhood, planning to name her son Connor. Her husband, Scott Peterson, reported her missing on Christmas Eve 2002, claiming he'd last seen her that morning before leaving for a solo fishing trip to Berkeley Marina, about 90 miles away. Scott Peterson appeared to be the devastated husband. He spoke to media outlets, his voice cracking with emotion. He cooperated with police, answering their questions. He joined search parties, handing out flyers with his wife's smiling face. To the outside world, he was a man desperate to find his beloved wife and unborn child. But beneath this carefully constructed facade, Scott Peterson had orchestrated what he believed would be the perfect murder. The crime itself was stunning in its calculated coldness. Prosecutors would later argue that Scott had killed Laci in their home, likely by strangulation, then transported her body in his truck to the Berkeley Marina. He'd weighted her body and dumped it into the San Francisco Bay, believing the currents and marine life would ensure she'd never be found. He'd chosen Christmas Eve deliberately, knowing that the holiday chaos would provide cover and that witnesses would be scarce. He'd created an alibi centered around a spontaneous fishing trip, despite the fact that he'd bought a 2-day fishing license days earlier and had researched currents and tides in the bay. But Scott Peterson made one critical error in his planning. He underestimated the power of the human conscience and the subtle ways guilt manifests itself, even in those who believe they can suppress it completely. In the weeks following Laci's disappearance, investigators noticed something peculiar about Scott's behavior. While he maintained his grieving husband persona publicly, his actions told a different story. He'd sold Laci's car within weeks of her disappearance. He'd inquired about selling their house. Most damningly, police discovered he'd been having an affair with a massage therapist named Amber Frey, whom he'd told he was a widower even before Laci disappeared. These weren't the actions of an innocent man desperately searching for his wife. But it wasn't these discoveries that truly broke the case wide open. It was something far more psychological, far more human. During police interviews, Scott Peterson's body language spoke volumes that his carefully rehearsed words tried to hide. Detectives noted how he avoided eye contact when discussing specific details about the day Laci disappeared. They observed his nervous tics, the way his hands trembled when shown photographs of his wife. Most tellingly, when asked directly if he had anything to do with Laci's disappearance, there were long, weighted pauses, moments of absolute silence that seemed to stretch into eternity. These weren't the pauses of someone searching for words to express grief. These were the pauses of someone calculating responses, someone whose mind was racing to maintain a lie that was becoming increasingly difficult to sustain. Behavioral analysts working with the Modesto Police Department recognized these silent moments for what they were: a form of non-verbal confession. The truth was trying to escape through every pore, even as Scott's mouth continued to lie. The breakthrough came when Amber Frey, Scott's mistress, came forward after recognizing him from news coverage. She agreed to work with police, recording her phone conversations with Scott. In these recordings, Scott's psychological unraveling became evident. He spoke about being in Paris for New Year's Eve when he was actually at a candlelight vigil for Laci in Modesto. He continued to lie compulsively, weaving increasingly elaborate stories that contradicted each other. But more importantly, in the silences between his words, in the heavy breaths and long pauses, you could hear the weight of his guilt pressing down on him. In April 2003, The bodies of Lassie and baby Connor washed ashore near the Berkeley Marina, exactly where Scott had gone fishing that fateful Christmas Eve. The perfect crime had quite literally surfaced. Scott was arrested shortly after, found with dyed hair, a goatee, nearly $15,000 in cash, camping equipment, and his brother's identification. He was heading toward the Mexican border, another silent admission that his carefully constructed lies had finally collapsed. During the trial, which captivated the nation and became one of the most watched legal proceedings in American history, prosecutors didn't just present physical evidence. They presented a psychological profile of a man whose silence had spoken louder than any testimony. They showed the jury recordings where Scott's pauses, his hesitations, his inability to maintain consistent eye contact during video interviews, all painted a picture of guilt that no amount of verbal denial could erase. The jury deliberated for 7 days before finding Scott Peterson guilty of first-degree murder for Lassie's death and second-degree murder for Connor's death. He was sentenced to death, though this sentence was later reduced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The perfect crime had collapsed, not because of forensic breakthroughs or surprise witnesses, but because guilt is a confession that begins in silence, in the spaces between words, in the moments when the mind struggles to reconcile the horror of what it's done with the lie it's trying to maintain. Psychologists who studied the case noted that Scott Peterson exhibited classic signs of what they call duping delight, mixed with profound psychological stress. He believed he could outsmart everyone, but his own conscience became his greatest enemy. Each silent pause, each avoided question, each moment of hesitation was his unconscious mind trying to confess what his conscious mind refused to admit. The Peterson case serves as a chilling reminder that no crime is truly perfect, because the human psyche isn't designed to carry the weight of murder without consequence. Guilt doesn't always manifest in tearful confessions or dramatic revelations. Sometimes it whispers through silence, through the things left unsaid, through the pauses that stretch just a moment too long. This case reminds us that truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep we try to bury it. The human conscience is powerful, and silence can speak volumes. If you found this story as compelling as we did, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our deep dives into the most fascinating true crime cases in history. Drop a like if this story left you thinking about the psychology behind crime and justice. And tell us in the comments, do you believe it's possible to commit a perfect crime? Or will guilt always find a way to reveal the truth? We read every comment and love hearing your perspectives. Stay curious, stay engaged, and we'll see you in the next video where we uncover another incredible true story that proves reality is often stranger than fiction.